with the labeling of masculinity as toxic. And it's not like they'll say, well, I'm not saying all masculinity. They might say that. But just the idea of masculinity is associated with the patriarchy, war, all of the worst things of society, when in reality, on an individual level, you need these characteristics. And I don't know, growing up, like, I mean, especially in Western society, when do you become a man?
In Western society?
Like, at what point? I mean, is it when you move out of your house, your parents' home? Is it when you go to college? Like, no. Is it when you get a job? Not necessarily.
I don't know. When do you think it should be?
What's that?
When do you think it should be?
Well, I mean, I guess the better question is, how does it come about? Like, how do you become a man? And what does that even mean? Because it's not just being an adult person, or like being.
It's mystical. It's mystical.
Yeah.
It's ambiguous as well. And I say that even though like other cultures have rites of passage and stuff like that, but even those aren't, you can't explain those. Those are also mystical and ambiguous.
Sure.
It's just that they have an event with a bunch of other men in a ceremony to put it to. I mean, the Western equivalent, which is not even an equivalent, maybe a bachelor party.
Right. Yeah. Rite of passage. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
but it's like it's a cheap version of, like, you don't become a man by like going to a strip club or getting drunk with your friends, or like, you know.
Plus you can get married at any age, so it's not really age specific.
Yeah.
Whereas I believe probably in other cultures there's an age, you know, a certain age. I assume at puberty, you know, is when at least I think at least you should start the journey of beginning to think about how to be a man, or what kind of man you want to be. You know?
Yeah, and these are questions and ideas I never really thought about until pretty recently, you know, because it's just not really, it's not emphasized, at least like my dad and brother, you know, it's just not in our culture. There's not a context for like, okay, I mean, unless your dad is a hunter and he's going to take you out like on your first hunt, and like, oh, you got, you know, that's some rite of passage. I mean, you still kind of have that in, you know, if your family has that, you know, like if they're hunters, but generally speaking, there's not a very clear cut cultural part of like, all right, now this makes you a man, because a lot of that's been inverted or perverted to mean something bad. And
yeah,
clearly that's not the case about masculinity, you know, inherently masculinity is not toxic, right? So yeah. Let's get to clip 2 here, where they talk a little further about what it means to become a man.
Okay.
Throughout history, rites of initiation have assisted boys in the process of separation individuation. Through trials and tests overseen by male elders, the boy dies and is reborn a man. Femininity unfolds naturally, whereas masculinity must be achieved. And here is where the male ritual cult steps in. But in the modern West, adequate male role models capable of initiating a boy into manhood are few and far between. Many men are emerging into adulthood without having left the psychological womb of the mother. As a result of not being taught how to embrace struggle, become self-reliant, and engage in the ceaseless enterprise which cross-culturally is expected of the potent man, many men are consumed by lethargy, the desire to evade reality and escape danger by seeking solace at the mother's side. They are succumbing to what Thomas Gregor in his study of the Mahunaku tribe of Brazil referred to as the desire to take the path back to fusion with the mother and the pleasures of infancy. Or in other words, they are consumed by what Carl Jung called the spirit of regression, who threatens us with bondage to the mother and with dissolution and extinction in the unconscious.
And I just want to point out, again, dealing with inversion, everything's inverted here. Progression, progress, progressive, often is in the male context referred to the spirit of regression. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, yeah.
In succumbing to the spirit of regression, we adopt lifestyles antithetical to manhood. One such lifestyle which Jung repeatedly warned of is what in mythological terms is referred to as the incestuous marriage to the mother, whereby one remains in the psychological womb of the mother well into old age. If this situation is dramatized, then there appears before you on the psychological stage a man living regressively, seeking his childhood and his mother, fleeing from a cold, cruel world which denies him understanding. Often a mother appears beside him who apparently shows not the slightest concern that her little son should become a man, but who, with tireless and self-immolating effort, neglects nothing that might hinder him from growing up and marrying. You behold the secret conspiracy between mother and son, and how each helps the other to betray life.
And my boy Carl hits hard.
Yeah.
And, you see that I've seen that with a few people with everyone's probably seen it, like the just inappropriate relationship where you're like, okay, there's being a mama's boy and then there's being like, this is unhealthy,
Well,